Which of the quadratics has a graph with only one x-intercept? What does that mean? Tell me in another way what that question is asking. Okay, Zaire? Right. Go ahead. Go ahead. He didn't say it out loud. Okay, Courtney, go. One time. Now, what kind of graph does a quadratic function make? A parabola. So the easiest way to know which one of these equations is going to create a parabola that touches the x-axis one time is to what? Graph it. So we start by graphing the first one, y equals 2x squared plus 4. Okay, 2x squared plus 4 crosses the x-axis how many times? None. So this one has 0 x-intercept, so it's not the right answer. Then you graph the next one, x squared minus 8x plus 16. Shh, there's too much talking. X squared minus 8x plus 16. And once the parabola shows up on your screen, how many times does it hit the x-axis? Once, right here at 4. So it's B. That is a question that everybody in here is fully capable of doing. It's pretty easy. Okay, now I've handed out the review sheet, which is for Wednesday's test. You are going to work on it by yourself for the next 10 minutes. I only want you going from 1 to 13. Okay, so on this review sheet, work on numbers 1 through 13 for the next 10 minutes, and then I'm going to go over those. Tomorrow, we will go over numbers 14 through 25. Wednesday is the test day. This looks very similar to the test questions. So if you know how to do number 1 on the review sheet, then that means you'll know how to do number 1 on the test, and so on. So go get busy with these right now, and in 10 minutes I'll start going over them. Number 1, find the product. What does that mean when they say find the product? Multiply. How do you multiply something like this? Correct. 6 times 3x is, and 6 times 4 is positive 24. Okay, number 2, multiply. How do you multiply those? 2 times 5n squared is, 2 times 5n is positive 10n, and then 2 times 1 is positive 2. Okay, those are pretty easy, so questions 1 and 2 on the test should be pretty easy. Number 3, since there's no choices, we just need to write the equivalent expression to the one that's given. Well, what does it mean when something's squared? It means you write it twice. No, because now we need to actually simplify it. And how do you simplify that? Double distribute, or sometimes people call it FOIL. X times x is x squared. X times 12 is 12x. Now that we've distributed the x to everything, we distribute the 12 to everything over there, and that makes another 12x and a positive 144. Now what do we need to do? Combine the like terms. What are the like terms, Marcus? What are the like terms? Okay, and they combine to a what? 24x. Shh. Can I erase this one? All right, number 3 says multiply, and you're given 2 binomials, Number 4 says multiply, and you're given 2 binomials that are side by side, so you double distribute. 3b times 1b is 3b times negative 4 is b. And then 3 times b is positive 3b. Sion, pay attention. And 3 times negative 4 is? Right. And now what do we do? Combine like terms. 3b squared doesn't have a like term. Negative 12b plus 3b is? And then minus 12 doesn't have a like term. And then that's the answer. All right, number 5. What do we do? Correct. X times 2x is? X times negative 8 is? Negative 9 times 2x is? And negative 9 times negative 8 is? Okay, now what do we do? Okay, 2x squared doesn't have a like term, so just bring it down. These two are like terms, and they combine to? And then plus 72. All right, number 6. What is the product of the expression? So what do we do? Right. Can I erase the previous one? All right, number 6. 4x times 4x is 16x squared. 4x times negative 3 is? Negative 3 times 4x is? And negative 3 times negative 3 is? Positive 9. Now we combine like terms, which are the middle two, because they're both just x to the first power. So that becomes 16x squared minus 24x plus 9. This is what I recommend when you're taking a multiple choice test. Sometimes multiple choice tests can cause you to get the wrong answer, and let me talk about why. Sometimes you try to just do it in your head and look at the answers, but that's not a good idea, because some of those answer choices have been created by teachers who know what you're going to do wrong. So it's best, even when working a multiple choice test, to go to the side and work it out without looking at the choices, and then once you have an answer, look over and figure out which one it is. Do not ever just try to do it in your head. Okay, write out all the work, and once you're finished, see if what you have is an actual choice. Okay, number 7. Find a polynomial expression for the area of the rectangle shown. So they're wanting us to find the area of the rectangle. What is the formula for area of a rectangle? No. Just length times width. It's just two-dimensional. So we're going to do the length, which is 2x minus 3, times the width, which is x plus 2. Would it have been okay had I wrote the width first, then the length? Yes, because multiplication is commutative. You can multiply in any order. Now how do we actually multiply these? Correct. 2x times x is 2x squared. Because look, this is a 1. And then 2x times 2 is positive 4x. Negative 3 times x is, and then negative 3 times 2 is. Now what do I do? So it becomes 2x squared plus x minus 6, because that's a 4 minus 3, which is a positive 1. All right, next page. All right, number 8 is also an area problem. So we already discussed that to find the area of a rectangle, it's length times width. But before we start that process, what would make it easier for us? Correct. Go ahead and simplify your length by distributing that 4. And now the length becomes what? Correct. So now to find the area, you do the length, which is 4x minus 16, times the width, which is x plus 5. And now you just double distribute, or some people call it FOIL. 4x times x is 4x squared. But now y'all all realize that if you know how to double distribute, you know how to FOIL, right? Because that line I just drew is first, because that's the first term of this one, that's the first term of this one. When you distribute it to that, those are the outer terms. Then when you distribute this to this, those are the inner terms. And when you distribute this to this, those are the last ones of each. So if you know how to double distribute, you know how to FOIL. You just don't like calling it FOIL. You prefer calling it double distribute. Okay, so that becomes 4x squared plus 20x. Then what? Minus 16x minus 80. Now we just combine like terms. 4x squared comes down. 20x minus 16x is positive 4x. Pay attention. And then minus 80. Y is what? Okay. Number 9. Shh, girls in the back. A greenhouse that specializes in growing bell peppers is divided into sections. The number of plants in each section depends on the number of sprinklers in that section. In a section with X sprinklers, there are 2x squared plus 5 red bell pepper plants and x plus 3 squared yellow bell pepper plants. What expression represents the total number of red and yellow bell pepper plants in the section with X sprinklers? Okay, what does total mean? Addition. But before doing that, Zaire, what do we need to do? Right. Correct. And now what do I do? This is not a hard one, though. So now look, we distributed those together and it made this, and now aren't we just going to add it to these terms? So that becomes 2x squared plus 1x squared, which is 3x squared. So the x squareds are combined. 5 plus 9 is 14, and I'm going to put it at the end to leave room for the x to the first term, and that is a 6x. Yes? Because when you're adding or subtracting these, you do not do anything to the exponents. You just add or subtract the coefficients, the big numbers. You only change the exponents when multiplying or dividing. All right, so now we have finished multiplying. Now we're moving on to factoring. So I want you to go ahead and get out this flow chart that I gave you last week. Okay, get out this flow chart. So, number 10. What are the factors of the expression x squared minus 4x? Is that a binomial or a trinomial? It is a binomial. Shh. So I'm going to look at the side of the flow chart that says binomial, and then I'm going to work that problem. Remind me again what it is? X squared minus 4x? Okay. Okay, so it is a binomial. So the first question that is asked is it a difference of two squares? No, it's not. It's very close. It is very, very close. I'm trying to teach. Shh. Okay, look. It's a difference. And that's a perfect square because x times x will make x squared. And 4 is a perfect square because 2 times 2 is 4. But x is not a perfect square. Because nothing times itself is going to make an x. Like x times itself will make an x squared, but nothing times itself will just make a regular x. So that means we have to go the route of no and look for a GCF. And how do we do that? Shh. You have to list out their factors, which is an x times an x, and then a 2 times a 2 times an x. So what do they have in common? Just an x. That x that they have in common is their GCF. So you pull it on the outside. And then what remains goes back inside, including the sign that was already there. From the x squared, wasn't there just an x remaining? And from the 4x, wasn't 2 times 2 remaining, which is 4? And so that's the answer. Because that's what they have in common. They have one x in common, so you pull one x out. And then you know it's right because when you look at it and quickly distribute it out in your head, x times x is x squared, x times negative 4 is negative 4x. All right, number 11, binomial or trinomial? binomial. 2x squared plus 4x. Is it a difference of two squares? Definitely not. It's not a difference at all. It's a sum. So no, we need to look for a GCF by listing out the factors of these two terms. What are the factors of 2x squared? Right. What about 4x? So what do they have in common? A 2 and an x, so 2x is the GCF. You factor it out. When you factor out something, you're basically undistributing it. And you're telling me what was left before it would have been distributed, and that was an x from the 2x squared and a 2 from the 4x, and then you just bring down the plus. And now you know it's right, because if you were to distribute it back, 2x times x is 2x squared, 2x times 2 is 4x. It does, because think about it when you distribute it back out. 2x times x makes that. 2x times 2 makes that. So if you had the 2 in front, 2x times 2 would make a 4x, and that's not first up here. All right, number 12. Is it a binomial or trinomial? Binomial. We have b squared minus 81. Is that a difference of two squares? Yes. So you take the square root of each term and you write them in two binomials. And it even shows you that one of them will get a plus sign, one of them will get a minus sign. Now, we all know the square root of 81 is 9, because 9 times 9 is 81. What is the square root of b squared? So, well, the square root of b squared is b, because b times b is b squared. And so that's the answer. All right, number 13. Is it a binomial or a trinomial? It is a binomial. C squared minus 36x squared. Is it a difference of two squares? Yes. So we take the square root of each one and we put them in binomials, one with a plus sign, one with a minus. What is the square root of c squared? C times c will make c squared. So the square root of c squared is a c. What about the square root of 36? So 6 times 6, but to get an x squared on it, each of them need an x. Okay, now I want you to get out the worksheet we were working on Friday. It was not homework. We're going to work on it now. Okay, number 13. Somebody tell me what number 13 says. Oh, we did that one together. Okay, is 14 a binomial or a trinomial? Okay, so I need to go to the trinomial side. And now tell me what number 13 is. P squared. Okay, so the first thing says, is A equal to 1 or not equal to 1? It's equal. There's an understood 1 out front in the A place. So we go straight into the bubble method, which is where you look for two numbers. Those two numbers have to multiply to equal your C, which is 24, and those same two numbers have to add to equal your B, which is negative 11. Oh, 14. Okay, so now it even shows you that you've got to write your answers in two binomials. But of course, instead of putting an x in front, you put a p in front of each one. And now what are the numbers that do this? A negative 8 and a negative 3. So it's p minus 8, p minus 3. That order does not matter. You could have written the p minus 3 first. Now, the whole reason that this is the answer and these are the factors is because if I were to double distribute this, it would make this trinomial. Yes? Yes. Is number 15 a binomial or a trinomial? It's a trinomial? Okay, tell me what it looks like. 4m squared minus 24m. Okay. The first question that it asks on this side is A equal to 1 or not equal to 1? Not. Is A the GCF? How do you decide that? Correct. So sometimes if you don't know, you just need to try. Okay, when you divide it from the 4m squared, you're left with, when you divide it from the negative 24, you're left with negative 6m, and then negative 160 over 4 is negative 40. Since you were able to divide it and get whole numbers, that means 4 is the GCF, and just like it says right here, you write it on the outside, and then at that point you look for two numbers that multiply to the C of negative 40 and add to the B of negative 6, and you continue writing the GCF on the outside and then write two binomials. So what numbers multiply to make negative 40 and add to make negative 6? Okay, what kind of 10 and 4? Right. All right, number 16. Is it a binomial or trinomial? It's a binomial? Okay. Everybody got this one copied? Okay, tell me what number, what are we on, 16? Tell me what it says. What kind of sign? Plus 49p to the fourth. Okay, is it a difference of two squares? So we go this route where we look for the GCF by writing out all the factors. Now, say that you don't want to write out 5p's and 4p's. Look at this little hint down here. It says find the GCF of the numbers, like find the biggest number that will go into both of those. 7. If you can't figure it out, you're going to have to write them out. 7 times 5, 7 times 7. They only have a 7 in common, so that's the biggest number that will go into both numbers. Now, out of the two exponents, which one's the lowest? The 4 is the lowest exponent. So that means p to the fourth will come out, because think about it. If you write 5p's up top and 4p's down bottom, aren't you going to be able to circle 4, which is p to the fourth? And now, if you don't have all that written, you might have a hard time knowing what goes back inside. Well, you know the numbers, 5 and 7. And the sign is plus. Then think about it. P to the fourth times what would make p to the fifth? P. And then p to the fourth times what would make p to the fourth? Well, nothing. And the 7's already there, so that's done. You can't do it like that, though. You just need to continue writing them all out and circling. You may switch out. Tomorrow we'll finish this review sheet, and we'll continue working on this worksheet. Wednesday is the test.